Welcome to the Horse Speak Book Club. I'm Laura Wilsey, your host, and we are embarking on a journey through the Horse Speak Trilogy. The Horse Speak team is dedicated to giving horses a voice and being their well-deserved advocates. We provide evidence-based knowledge of equine body language that is intrinsic, observable, and repeatable. This is a judgment-free zone. Everyone here has a varied horsemanship background, and we ask you to help keep the environment safe so no one feels shamed in any way. So let's begin. All right, pausing. Going momentarily to inner and outer zero is one of the most important parts of any conversation you have with a horse. Sharon discovered that the pivotal point in a conversation is not while posing a question or pitching an idea, not when the horse shows me his answer or shows her his answer, and not even when she responds in dialogue with him. The pivotal point in the conversation is the interval in between actions, the pause, the quiet moment she gives a horse so he has the space to think and consider. For example, when a horse answers her with a twitch or flicker of his ear, or we would also call a twitch wiggle, Sharon pauses to let him know she sees his answer. Horses may require longer pauses as they consider an answer to give you. When they are truly thinking, it can be at a snail's pace. Even if you don't understand the meaning of a horse's movement or gesture, stop all cues and go to outer zero. Pause and give yourself time to think, as well as the horse, and decide what your response or next question will be. Your horse may just be taking a moment to find and really answer for you as well. Just like us, some horses need more time to think than others. At times, a horse may seem to tune us out in the conversation. Realize he might be thinking things through and not ignoring you. Thoughtful horses are worth waiting for because when those horses answer, it will be clear and dramatic. Horses can transform in conversation, releasing confusion, showing us in horse speak how much is shifting internally for them. Sharon says, hitting her own pause button has become somewhat automatic. But she knows from the lessons she teaches in conversation, coaching her students when to stop cueing or asking when to pause can be the hardest thing to learn. So I'm going to go back to read the side note. Engagement in practice. We're back on page 23. At a recent clinic, there was a Mustang that seemed happy when he recognized Sharon's horse speak skills. He was one of two horses loose in an indoor arena, and she asked all the attendees to try a series of simple conversations with him and his buddy. If one of her students forgot the part of the conversation, the Mustang would cue the student, demonstrating the exact gesture. The Mustang even prompted the other horse when it seemed he didn't understand conversation. It was a wonderful example of a horse deliberately engaging humans in horse speak. Flip back. No wrong answers. You may get it in your head. A cue or question from you is going to cause the horse to reply in a certain way. Well, guess what? When your horse flicked his tail at you, it was his answer. Anything a horse does can be your answer when you know horse speak. Sorry, when you are truly in conversation, you do not anticipate a certain response with a horse any more than you would in regular conversation with a person. In any true conversation, there is no wrong answer. Sharon poses a question or pitch, an idea, and asks the horse what he thinks about it. She grants a horse, She grants a horse his inherent right to give her an answer of his own, not one defined by his training. By letting her horse be authentic, she just may learn a lot about herself in the process. All right. So next up, and I will get you on the audio, is going to be Violet to read. So we're reading, just in case you don't know, we are reading 2 subtitles and then we will switch. And actually, for you, Violet, why don't you read till Century Breath? Because these are very short subtitles.
Okay. So we're on breath messages, right? Page 24.
Yep.
Most of us do not use breath as a communication tool, but when it comes to having conversations with your horse, excuse me, breath messages may be the best way to show him things are changing for you both. If you practice deep breathing, for example, each time you approach your horse, in time he'll believe and see you are trying to do your best to be aware of what is a foundational tool of horse speak. Greeting breath. A horse's lungs extend forward and backward from his shoulders within his body. He communicates from the depths of his body with a variety of types of breaths. One is the greeting breath. When he huffs 3 breaths toward another horse from a distance, you may notice your horse uses an extended out breath with the last huff. Horses also just sniff at each other as a drive-by greeting. Try blowing 3 huffing breaths at your horse from a visible distance. Watch for his nostrils to flare as he greets you in return. Beckoning breath. A horse can use a beckoning breath to welcome another horse or a human. You will only see a subtle nostril gesture that accompanies this deliberate breathing. The nostrils widen and the horse breathes softly. Your horse breathes you in, inviting you into his space. It is such a sweet experience once you notice this affectionate gesture. God, I read this whole thing like a few days ago, and it feels completely different now. Listening to you and reading all that. Interested breath. A horse uses short intakes of breath to indicate interest, as if he is taking whiffs of a pleasant scent. You can indicate deep interest in your horse with 3 inward whiffs, as opposed to outward huffs as in a greeting breath. This can move from mere interest to friendship when a horse sniffs another's neck, a wonderful practice for you to mirror or imitate, especially before any activity, such as grooming or mounting, or simply while visiting in the stall or paddock with him. Nurturing breath. Another important breath message sounds like an inward sniff or snort. Mares use this breath with newborns to encourage them to stand and nurse. I call this the nurturing breath. Mimic this breath by clearing your throat with an inhale. It can resemble the soft snort a pig might make. I once caught an injured horse no one else could get near using the nurturing breath. He looked at me as if to say, "Really? You cared that much?" I was able to walk right up to him. This inward snort is a great tool to keep in mind. You never know when you will need to distract or soothe a horse in a critical situation. Relaxing breath. A long, soft blowing out of breath is used by horses that want to relax one another. This is the same relaxing breath you might use while blowing softly toward the horse. Horses exchange breath all the time, and as they do, they will usually softly clear their noses, sounding a little like a dolphin's breathing through a blowhole. 3 short, gentle, whiffing breaths out near the muzzle mimics another friendship greeting recognized by all horses. I think we should be having you like demonstrate these
I'll do
breaths.
them after.
Okay, good. Yawns, big sigh, and shuddering breath. Horses use breath for emotional release. They blow off an experience by clearing their noses and shaking their heads. It is as if they are clearing the air before moving on to the next thing. Horses yawn as we do when we are waking up or napping, but yawning in horses also has an important message that they are letting go. The big sigh is what you hear when you blanket a horse on a cold day, place a carrot in the dinner tub, or maybe even when you dismount. The big sigh is agreement. It could translate into the words yes or amen. Horses sigh with each other all the time. When you see 2 horses grooming, for example, at the end, they may both release a big sigh. My whole herd takes turns giving me big sighs when I feed them their last hay for the night. Another breath of release is when a horse draws 2 short half breaths in and then exhales in a long out breath. I call this the shuddering breath because it is like the big breath in that we the big breath in that we take at the end of a good cry with a few hitching in breaths before we let out a big sigh. Anyone who is tense or anxious should try several of these breaths before mounting. It is the perfect breath to relax and clear the air for both you and your horse. These types of breaths say, I am letting this go. I am greatly rewarded when the horse shows me he is releasing tension with this breath and gesture.
Thank you. Danuta, you're up next. Thank you. And why don't you read up to contact versus space? Oops, we can't hear you. Danuta, are you there?
All right, so Alexis, I think you unmuted me.
I think, yeah, you and Sherry unmuted and Danuta is unmuted, but I don't know why she is having maybe a technical difficulty. So, Alexis, are you here,
Can
Danuta?
you hear me now?
Yes, there you go.
Yes. Okay,
Perfect.
cool.
Thank you.
Okay. Sentry breath. A short, forceful snort out is connected to fear. A horse will blow out or snort at something in the environment that is of concern. Sharon calls this the sentry breath. You can calm the horse by mirroring this breath. Hold your head up, look in the direction he is looking, and blow as if you're blowing out many birthday candles on a cake. She has had great success with panicky horses using the sentry breath. The trick is to do it consistently until it becomes a habit. As with other forms of horse speak, you will learn you are finding ways to say to your horse, I see the boogeyman too. Trumpeting. Trumpeting is rare, but can be heard when penmates are separated from each other or when an unknown object causes fear and remains a factor a perceived threat over a longer period of time, as opposed to the brief snort of warning in the sentry breath. It sounds a bit like an elephant vocalization. I once heard my horses trumpeting, and there was a coyote on the other side of the stone wall, in no hurry to move along. Deliberate breathing. A horse that is relaxed and breathing deeply may look pregnant because of the distension of his belly. By comparison, a horse that is not breathing normally is also holding tight in his underbelly and will look tucked up. When worried, horses may minimize their breath, just like we do. You can help any horse relax to a greater degree when you take big breaths around them. I sometimes just lean my head against the side of the horse at the girth line, and take big breaths until he joins me with a great big sigh. As you'll see in the steps ahead, deliberate breathing is a key component to our conversations with horses. Shall I continue?
Yes, please. Read up to contact versus space.
Okay, so
Thank you.
the bubble of personal space, circles and arcs. In order for a herd to move safely at high speeds, horses must practice negotiating spatial relationships with all the others in their group. These negotiations include determining who is the leader and who should follow whom when the herd must run from a predator. The bubble of personal space around a horse is circular, the same as ours. In fact, when a horse is calm and has time to think, he will instinctively move in predictable circles or arcs. Fearful or panicked horses run in straight lines. Normally, the size of the circles or arcs changes. When a horse yields his space to you by moving his head over and taking his feet with him, he is actually yielding his place along his circle or arc. Even if a horse seems to be walking straight towards the water trough in the field, watch carefully and you will see subtle shifts in the forehand to his right or to his left. And if you watch horses move in a group with each other, you will see them walk around each other in arcs, tracing the borders of their circular bubbles of personal space. Circles and arcs in practice. One day, Sharon was looking out of her kitchen window and noticed something odd happening in the field. Her old gelding was shooing away his companion mare, and something about him didn't look right. Each time the mare came in close, he made a grimacing face and sent her trotting away. She'd circle him again at the trot and return to check in. Sharon watched for 5 or 6 circuits. It actually looked as if her gelding was lunging the mare. When she saw the gelding paw the ground, she could then tell that it was a sign of pain and was sure he needed her help, likely a colic episode. But it was the mare's circular dance that caught her attention and ensured she noticed his distress early enough to keep it from progressing. Although most of the time horses only move in half circles or arcs around each other, she saw this full circle phenomenon another time as well. She had 2 horses at liberty in a clinic and was sending one, she'll explain later, with a driving message. The horse would respond by moving away and going behind his buddy, but each time he came back to her, completing a full circle. It was quite humorous to all of the people watching. It was as if his buddy was a barrel and he was going around. Horses clearly skate the edges of each other's bubbles. In a herd, actual spatial awareness is developed, so no horse will trip up another as they move as a group. Much of their language addresses these themes of space, as we will see in the rest of the book.
Thank you so much. Alexis?
Contact versus space. Because they are naturally motivated to preserve safety in the herd, horses value space more than they value contact. Humans, however, value contact more than we value space. We have hands and a need to touch. Our need to touch our horses can supersede our common sense and even get us into trouble. Our love of touch is, in fact, the root of awkwardness and miscommunication with our horses. Horses need to feel their space is respected. A significant amount of their facial communication with us is about their personal space and how they perceive it's being violated. We'll talk more about these facial expressions in step 2. But we often just move into their bubbles of personal space and put halters on without asking permission or kiss their muzzle without warning, which is not to say we shouldn't halter, caress, hug, or snuggle our horses. But in order to be considerate, we might think about doing these things more tactfully. To see when we are invading a horse's bubble, we need to watch the eyes and lips more closely than the ears. Some domestic horses believe there is little point in asking humans to move out of their personal space. They may have been punished in the past if they did. A domestic horse that's used to having his space invaded will only show a hard eye and tight lips to convey, "I don't like this." This horse may stand perfectly still on the cross ties while you groom and tack him, but the look on his face is the look on ours when we are at the doctor getting an injection. Horses communicate about personal space all the time with their faces, even when they are only 2 horses in a herd, sharing a grazing area or piles of hay. Their facial gestures will say things like, "I don't mind you close to me," or "You, I don't like you right now, and I don't want you anywhere near me." Horses never want to stop eating, so they first try to negotiate space just by looking at each other. Horses are always asking questions of each other and receiving answers. When one horse approaches another, their bubbles of personal space touch before their bodies have physical contact. Sharing space means they are in overlapping bubbles. Personal space is not the entire picture when it comes to horse speak, but it's one of the most observable interactions between horses we can witness. 2 spatial relationship conversations that are easy to identify in horses are approach and retreat, and go away and come back. Although these may sound similar at first, approach and retreat is the way a horse, or you, enter another's bubble. Go away and come back is how a horse asks for some space or beckons you to come closer. Do you want me to keep reading, Laura?
Yeah, this
Okay.
read the next subtitle. Thank you.
Okay, approach and retreat. Horses are quite specific in their communication with each other, so they do not like people to be vague with them. Approach and retreat permits the horse or person requesting permission to enter another space to learn a lot about the other horse or person. Using this template in a horse speak conversation shows a horse that you are trying to be aware of his bubble of personal space. He needs to be allowed a chance to get to know how your outer 0, physical, looks and how your inner 0, emotional, feels. Once he sees you watching for a signal to take the pressure off his bubble of personal space, he will trust you more. Once this approach and retreat is ingrained in your behavior, you'll see how basic it is and use it in many interactions in a general way, as horses do with each other. Approach does not just mean moving toward the horse, although this is one expression in the conversation. Approach is any sort of asking. Retreat is the reply from the asker once the horse has answered the approach. Retreat is the release of action, intensity, or asking. It's going back to 0. Approach is easy for humans to learn as predators, but learning and integrating what I call retreat to 0 takes more effort, which is why learning to pause is so important. Horses approach others with tact. They may simply look at, breathe toward, or lean toward each other. Extending the nose in greeting is also an approach. Retreat can be a complete withdrawal from another's bubble. Sometimes retreat may be as subtle as a horse simply pausing for a moment while on approach. Retreat is an expression of sensitivity to the other horse's bubble of personal space.
Thank you. And Sherry.
Go away and come back. Horses also negotiate personal space with the go away and come back conversation using sending, i.e., go away, and beckoning, which means come back messages. We're all familiar with how a horse sends another away. Examples of the sending language are pinned ears, grimaced face, raised poll, face aimed towards a button on the other's face, neck, girth, or rump. See page 36 for discussion of the horse speak buttons. Stomping, kicking, striking, and biting. Beckoning language is more subtle. Relaxed ears, a steady, soft gaze, a lowering of the head or head nods, and soft breathing communication, as I described on page 25, which makes him be soft and welcoming. Gestures of friendship. As we are starting to understand, horses beckon other horses with facial expressions. The horse that wants company will simply gaze with a lowered head at the horse he is welcoming. He may nod his head slightly and use a soft breath message. Watch for his expression, which I call aw shucks, when you are approaching him. He'll put a muzzle to the ground, asking you to take the pressure off. You might see his nostrils moving. This bears repeating. Anytime your horse puts his muzzle to the ground and is not eating, whether in a halter, bridle, or at liberty, it is his version of aw shucks. Pause in your approach and take a few seconds to do the human version, scuffing your foot and looking down. Your horse may become so interested in seeing if you will mirror this consistently, he will initiate this conversation again and again. Pay attention if your horse looks at you with a soft gaze. If his lips are relaxed or you see them wiggle, which means I am having a nice day, join me. Notice whether his nostrils are huffing, as if he's trying to breathe you in. Another gesture of friendship and welcome is what Sharon calls deferring space. It feels like when someone sitting on a couch moves over to make room as you to sit down beside her. When you walk up to your horse, notice if he gracefully turns his head and neck away from you without moving his legs or any of the rest of his body. Also notice if he is not looking at anything in particular, just making space near his shoulder. This supreme gesture of welcome is often misinterpreted by us. We tend to think the horse is turning away in disinterest or is rejecting us in some way when it is just the opposite.
Awesome. Thank you. So that's a perfect place to end, because then the next page is the 13 buttons. At the time of when the book was written, we had 13 buttons, and now we do have 15, which we go over in the third book. So we'll get there eventually as a group to get to the third book and talk about 15 buttons. But for now, we are going to discuss, this is the thing I was thinking about as we are going through these pages, is the depth of what is being talked about. And we just read like just 12 pages, and there's so much information here. And so this is where we are learning a language and with another species. And so taking your time and slowing down, and the power of the pause, and then noticing the breath messages and things, is where we need to be patient during this practice of learning. It's progress, not perfection, as one would say. So the thing is, with breath messages, we do have a video online. If you check out YouTube, go to Sharon Wilsey, that's our page, and you can check out Sharon doing the breath messages. So I'll see, I will do some of the breath messages, and then y'all are welcome to put in the chat, or if you want to talk on the audio, raise your hand and we can, get on to the discussion. So the thing with greeting breath is, one, especially mares like to greet from a distance, and they'll do the big nostril flares. And so we're mimicking this by blowing out. So the greeting breath is, so my knuckle extended here. We want to make sure mechanically that we're not doing this. Please extend your arm, having a nice soft elbow. It's not straight arm. Nothing is straight. We talked about circles and arcs. So we want an arm that is bent a little bit at the elbow. And we're also having O posture in our shoulders. So 1, 2, 3. Beckoning breath. So it's like if you were inviting someone in, it'd be like, it's this one. I see beckoning breath and greeting breath. They're very similar, but it's like, it's similar also to the interested breath. It's like, And so also with breathing, the thing I like to do because of my me, and especially because I'm more of an up energy, my practice of zero is all the time, um, is to stay in my body and sigh out. So it's when we get to the shuddering breath, sighing out instead of doing like blowing candles, like that to me, if you saw my face change, it's like my eyebrows went up and I'm like, and there's tension in my jaw. So, so as we continue, so interested breath, this is the short breath versus the beckoning breath would be more long. Very similar to greeting. Nurturing breath. So this one is, if you've ever had a sinus infection, you may do this, and it's a little nasty, but it is mimics close enough to what a horse would do, which you would really feel it in their throat here on a horse, or feel it, see it, listen to it, and it's more like, it's so subtle, and you're really hearing it from here. And so it's an inward snort. So you can practice, especially if you're sick. It'll be a good time to practice. Relaxing breath. So this is a long, soft blowing out. So this is where you can do your sigh. Or if you're good, well, there's no good or bad. But if you can blow out like with no tension in your jaw, then you can do that. But you can see I have to think about this to allow my cheeks to fill up. If I'm not thinking and being mindful, see, it's my eyes are going, that's more stress. So these nuances in our face are what horses are paying attention to, because they are micro gesture amazingness. That's not really a word, but I'm just going with it. So we know what a yawn is. And sometimes yawns can be a sign of relaxation, and it could be a little bit of stress too. So paying attention to the whole body, the striations, if you see striations on the jaw, tight chin, eyes are worried, ears are more backward in a concentrating way, and then looking at the jump up button, the back of the barrel, and seeing if they're tucked up. And one of the things, I didn't underline it, but we want to see short and fat ponies. So that means everything is chill and they look pregnant because their jump up button is more relaxed. So big sigh. And just like, oh, everything is good. After they, getting up maybe from having a nap, they might have that big sigh, or as it said, taking off the saddle, things of that nature. And then the shuddering breath. So yes, after a good cry, a catharsis experience, you go, and then it's kind of like a reset. Sentry breath. So this, I think, when we do a new version of the Sentry Breath, when they want to reprint this book again, we will definitely have a rewrite of this, because there's the bell curve of this mimicking this, because we don't all of a sudden want to go Sentry. And then the horse is like, what? We're gonna, we had an experience of someone talking, told us a story that they did sentry breath like out of the blue and they spooked their horse. It's like, yes, because you alerted nothing. So it's one of these nuanced things of like, if there is really a sentry breath, you would mimic that with them and then say, I see it, tail swish. We don't need to worry about that. But maybe there is something truly to worry about. So making sure that the environment is actually all clear is important. And if the head goes up, we can look and be like, what is it? And use the bridge of our nose, which is one of the 15 buttons that we talk about in the third book. And something that we learned from being gifted during the Horse Speak Club, not the book club, but the Horse Speak Club, where we also meet on Tuesdays, where we analyze our clients' videos. And we saw a baby Nyota, who was a fjord out in Washington. No, Oregon. Anyway, it doesn't matter where she lives. Doing this with the bridge of her nose. Like, what's that? And we do that. So it would be like the head goes up, like in Luna, her head is up, and be like, yeah, what is that? So we can mirror that and then be like, oh, all's clear. So then let's see, shuddering breath, sentry, heart who goes there, trumpeting. This is something that we wouldn't want to do. This would be because this is also an alert. And so therefore we want to the sound, we don't want to do this like I already said. Luna doesn't, she sounds like a pterodactyl. And so it's like the sound. So be on the watch for that. And then deliberate breathing. So that would be, Sharon says that the lungs, if you can imagine, are like bellows, and that there's these huge horizontal organs that are breathing. And so if we could imagine our lungs filling up, because a lot of us do for sitting purposes and stress and life in general, that we do this more up breathing instead of breathing all the way down into the lower part of our lungs, which is basically the length of our torso. So making sure that we are, if we have a horse that we see that is tucked up in their jump up button, then really breathing and filling up our rib cage with air can help them, because of mirroring neurons, mirror us. So the mirroring breathing is really cool to help relaxation. All is clear. We're going to start doing saddling, or we're going to do something. Let's get our breathing together so then we can, maybe go to the threshold of a little bit of stress, but we have always a place to go back to zero. And that is the inner and outer calm, all activities we want to be practicing at a state of zero. We want to be stress detectors. So I'm going to go into the chat and let's see what's going on here. I thought beckoning breath was a breathing in, like I'm breathing in the horse. Yeah, it can be, but it's hard. It's harder to do. So we can just be like, that's a little bit of interest. So there's this feeling of inward, so it's just how you're breathing can create a beckoning feel. And so we have a question. Thank you for answering about the second book. We can think of yawns, big sighs, and shuddering breath as points of transition, the mark of changing the state. Thanks, PJ. I appreciate that. And yes, Horses in Translation is the second book. And the second book is really has a lot of, it's all story based. So it's uses all of the gestures, postures, and signals and terms of horse speak, but in a story form. So if you are the type of person who can learn from reading stories, it's so well written. Sharon wrote this book with great visual pictures. So as you're reading, it's like you're there. It's just a beautiful book. And it's like the unsung hero of this collection, to be honest with you. And it has gone out of print, unfortunately. So it is available on audio, not on audio, but on a Kindle and electric, other type of electric modalities. So we hope to gain some more interest, so then more hard copies can be produced in the future. So Danuta, I'm going to put you on the audio and we can go from there.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, good. All right. Well, that's a shame that it's not in print. So I'd really like to get that.
Yeah, you could probably find one. It is like there's still some in circulation, but they're not printing anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'd just like to say that I watched the video, the breath video, and it was really funny.
Yep.
and it was really good. And then one day I was standing in the paddock with Dandy, and I happened to be standing at his vulnerability with my hand on his hip. And he turned his head round to me, and he went like that, which I recognized, thanks to the video, as the nurturing breath.
Yeah.
And I swear he was asking me a question. Was
Hmm.
it, are you going to be, will you look after me? And so I answered him in the same way. And he put his head down and he just started grazing. So yeah, that was just such an awesome moment. This
That's
was before
beautiful.
all the trouble with Reggie, but yeah, so we
Yeah.
do have that connection.
Cool. Good for
Yeah, it was really
you.
beautiful.
That's so awesome. And what did you feel? Like, did you feel a sensation um in your body when
I
that
felt,
happened?
I just felt so overwhelmed because I think it was just like the shock of actually him actually asking us actually having this conversation
Yeah.
because he was very young at that stage. He was what, 2.5, 3, if that. And yeah, it was just something really lovely because he's always been very mouthy and like, sort of in your face, always.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's just lovely to have that nice, nice conversation.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I'm
So
so
yeah.
glad you recognized that because
Yeah,
of
I
you
surprised
having
myself.
well, just because you've had such, you had a challenge, some challenges with him. So it's really cool that you
Oh,
were able, this was
this
a
was
while
before
ago.
we had the challenges.
It was
This was,
before.
yeah, well before. Yeah, yeah.
How
But
interesting.
yeah, but the horses are starting like Betty. She was so funny the other day. So I was had her and Lucy, and I had them both on halters, and I was trying to lead them both together, like making a mess of it. But we had fun. And anyway, I took the halters off and I just dropped them on the ground. And then Bethy went back to the halters and she stomped on them. So I thought, oh, you want your halter back on? Okay. So I put her halter back on and we did a little bit more. Then I let her go with her rope on her neck. And then she went back to the halter and she stopped on the ones on the ground. I said, you've got your halter. Oh, you want me to put Lucy's halter back on? Yeah, she wanted me to lead her and Lucy together because I think she just enjoys that. So
That's
it's just a bit of fun. I don't do it that it's not perfect, but it's getting there. It's getting there. We're getting fun, having fun. It's important.
judgment-free zone. That's even for ourselves.
But it's so nice for to say, sort of her stomping like, I want you to put Lucy's halter on.
Yeah, that's awesome. That direct line thinking, right? It was very clear, like, put this on.
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, I thought, wow, she's like really talking to me. She actually knows that I'll listen to her, which is beautiful.
Isn't it cool? It's such a
Yeah,
gift. It
absolutely.
really is a gift to be like, because everything means something. And so
Mhm.
then being like, oh, like it's just a constant puzzle. And that's, I think, the intriguing part about learning this language and being with horses and being just like having a thought, be like, what does that mean? I mean, sometimes it's totally clear, but then there's other times you're like, what is the nuance here? And so it's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just constantly just interesting and fun. And that's
And
what I think, we always say, like, have fun, enjoy the journey. Like, those are things that, we actually sign in books and things because I think the reason why most of us have horses is to have fun. And this opens the door because there's so many different things we can try.
oh,
And it's
it's
not
so
black and
much fun.
yeah, and not black and white. And then it's like, then training is just like icing on the cake. And we'd be like, I want to do, I don't know, pee off or whatever. But then still making that goal of doing this, fine work as fun instead of like, we must do PF today, da, 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 and like, it's just, our bodies need to feel free and open and fun. So then that relates to the horse instead of like, now we're going to work and you must do the thing,
Yeah, yeah.
you know?
And another thing was like with the pausing so many times, I go and do something and the horses react in a certain way. And I sort of think, oh, and it's not until I get back into the house and sit down and think about it, I think, that's what it was. Like
Cool.
Harry chasing them and leading them off to the orchard because they'd been waiting for me, but I didn't bring the halters down. So obviously I wasn't going to do anything with them. So
Yep.
they just go off to the orchard. I thought, oh, that's why. So yeah,
That's
the
awesome.
pause,
The
the
power of
pause.
the pause.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Danuta, for sharing today. I appreciate it. And also, thank you for reading.
Thank you.
Bet. All right. I'm going to head over to the chat. Let's see. Yes. Just to circle back about the horses in translation, it is on the thing to do is for Sharon to narrate horses in translation for sure. That would be, we just need to get that done. So you'll be the first to know on when that happens. And then thank you, Alexis. I saw fun is the creative motivation. Yeah, right? Because if we're not having fun, then it is more like work. And we don't want to feel like we're working with our horses. And that's like, I'm going to go out and work with my horse. Like it's innate in what we say about going and doing something with them. Instead of being like, I'm going to go have some fun with my horses and we're going to practice piaffe or going, just even walking over a trot pole. Let's see. I'm going to go up. Alexis, I said, I know we don't trumpet, but my geldings 3 times have trumpeted for me in the middle of the night to help a herd mate. That's awesome. Whoops, hold on. So while we read about it, being them using it for separation, my experience is when they experience fear and know we can help, they will trumpet for us. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Absolutely. They'd be like, hey, we need you. Get out here. So yeah, it's awesome. I love that they're just like, no, you would come out. And of course, in the middle of the night, it just actually, this is on the off the subject. I just remember my dog, Kaya Bear. She was an Anatolian Shepherd, Great Pyrenees. And somehow, I think in our old house, because we have all these cats, the window would be open. And so they would go in and out as they please. So we're not playing like in and out game with the kitties. And so Kaya Bear got out and started barking. And we tromped up to the neighbor's house. It was literally 2 in the morning. And she was barking, running in the woods. And what we found is that the horses at our neighbors, like I would say at least a half a mile away, were loose. And so we went up there and caught these horses. And so it was just amazing, not trumpeting horse, but trumpeting dog. And because of her, radar detector of knowing there's a disturbance in the force. And so Sharon and I are out there at 2 in the morning catching our neighbors' horses. It was incredible. And we were able to catch the dog too. And that is important because she didn't want to be caught. She liked to go and make sure everybody was doing okay. Yes, Alexis, the trumpets is noting stress of separation, so it makes sense that you're gelding trumpets to let you know that they separate you from the herd. That's awesome. Yay, thank you all for ordering horses in translation. I've started saying I have a play date with my horses. I love that. That's perfect. I always feel that I'm not, excuse me. I always feel that I'm spending time with my horse and not working with them. Have a much better time with that change in thinking. Beautiful. That makes sense because, this is the thing about us doing body scanning and recognizing what a word does to our body. So most of us, I would assume, work. It made my belly a little bit tight because even though I get to play, I feel like I am playing when we get to talk about horse speak and it's super fun. But if I say it's work, then it's like the sinking feeling because I have to go to work, so noticing any word like money is another big trigger for people that, that you have this relationship with that word, and it could be positive or it could be really negative. So there might be some words that you have in your vocabulary that you don't realize that are giving you a subconscious sinking feeling in your stomach. So, and how interesting thing to think about the power of words. It's so incredible. Let's see. I just say playing with my horses. I for sure don't want them to feel like it is work. Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry to have to go, but joining is has reminded me how beautifully written the book Horse Speak is, right? Fun to hear it read out loud in many voices. Thank you, Marianne. Yeah, it is. This is so awesome. And I really appreciate y'all being here live for the recording. And, we have technically 289 people signed up for the book club. So, I don't know how many people are actually watching the recording, but we have, 28 of us, 27, we're losing some, but it was, I think, at the peak about 30 people. So that's really great because, people, we don't have a lot of time. So, in case you don't know, you can get this is going to be posted on YouTube. So in case you didn't know that, so if you can't make it to a meeting, you can jump on YouTube and watch the recording. You can be in your car listening to the Zoom, or there is on your phone or any other electronic device. You can download the Kajabi app on your phone. So therefore, you can have access to the book club via the app also. And how you talk about one's horses. Yes, absolutely. Ours are beautiful, wonderful, and gorgeous. Yeah, and you do hear a lot of people like shaming their horse and talking mean to them, having such a negative bias about their horse. And, that doesn't help when it's just like any relationship. If you're bringing in negativity, then your body is going to hold that energy. And so because our energy, our nervous system radiates off of our bodies, so therefore if we walk into a room and we're grumpy, that other person's going to feel that. Similarly, the horse is going to feel that too. So the more that this is the power of zero and the power of pausing that can help our nervous system reset. And it's not going to be perfect, right? But it's the noticing. It's the pausing, it's the breathing. It's like, oh yeah, one of my big things is clamping my jaw in stress. So or my eyes bugging out of my head or what have you, so then I can be like, oh, let me lick and chew, or we say peanut butter mouth, or just to be like, okay, Faith, you need to get chubby. You need to relax, because the vagal nerve and everything, base all the way down into our belly. So the breathing is so important. Let's see. This is the best bedtime reading and book group. Yay. Thank you, Ellen. I appreciate that. Definitely bedtime for me. Oh, yeah, that's right. Being in Australia, it's 11 o'clock or maybe even later than that. So thank you for staying up with us and also reading. Thank you for putting this on YouTube. That way I can listen and go back. Yeah, wonderful readers. It was beautiful. Thanks, Virginia. Yeah, I'm just so happy that we're doing this and that other people are finding it useful, because I personally am not a big reader. I just have a short attention span. And so I have read the books in an editing way, but not from like cover to cover, like, yay, the book is out. Sharon's read the books probably 10 times a piece. And, and each time she gleans more and more. And, the first time when the books actually get put out, she is like, I don't even, it's scary. It's a scary experience to be like, I'm going to put my thoughts and opinions out into the world. And then after she reads it a few more times, then she's like, okay, this is good. I feel really proud of this. Let's see. Plus, in addition to reading, this provides other experiences. Yeah. And it takes a herd. That's the beautiful thing about actually the Horse Speak Club, where we meet at 1 o'clock and at 7 o'clock Eastern time, is that we have all different types of topics that come up. because people are sending in their horse videos. So it's either horse on horse conversations, or it's people having conversations with their horses. And then people bring up, oh, well, my horse has PSSM2 and all these different things. And so then we have a group of people coming, like-minded people coming together to help tend to horses and make sure, people have different supplement ideas and, exercises, things of that nature. Everyone's bringing their own personal background to the club. So it's just really beautiful. We're going to shut it down in just a minute. I'm just going to quickly read through these chats, and then we're going to close for the day, and we'll see you next week. I love this because I can go back several times and chunk it down. Absolutely. Thank you. I have read this section in hopes to practice these breaths while out with my friends' horses. I may remember too, but without the book, we'll forget what to watch for and know what to do next. Any suggestions other than bring the book out with them? Do you have cards? Yeah, this is something, cards, or you have a pocket thing. We are definitely going to be working on creating more of a pocket guidebook, or maybe I should take a photo of each of them in the book. So the easiest thing would be is to just film yourself. Set up a selfie stick or a tripod or something in a corner where and you see where your frame is, and stay within your frame. You could even mark it with cones or the little practice soccer discs to just know that, within that frame, your cell phone is taking the video. And then you can circle back around and watch it again. So then you can go into the nitty gritty of analyzing the video, because this is what we actually do on the club. And when you put it into whatever kind of viewer you have for your videos, you can actually use the arrow key to go forward and watch it frame by frame by frame. So then you can see the breaths and things, and actually watching in reverse will bring a different story also. And sometimes it's easier to see going backwards. Having gone through the books a couple years ago, it's really interesting to review slowly as we read and relearn from a new perspective. Yeah, this is a circular experience, just like our life experience. Things, circle back around. So yeah, we learn, and then when we go backwards, kind of like you get your black belt and you go back to being a white belt, it's like we can enhance our understanding. Have you any negative responses? Have you had any negative responses to what the books are saying? There's always going to be naysayers. If you want to go check out, Amazon, there's people's comments and things of that nature. Most of the people are really all in with what we're talking about. And then, of course, some people are like, this is a bunch of baloney. You're using weird words like, oh, shucks, or, having like horses can't have a good day. And, there's always, no matter what, there's always going to be folks out there who are might feel a little defensive because some of the stuff we are teaching with Horse Speak is completely opposite of what you might have learned. And depending on where you came from and who taught you about horses, there's a lot of different things that could be within your mind having a conflict. Because as some of us who have evolved, it's not just learning about horses, it's learning about yourself. And so if you want to dive deep, you have to look in the mirror and be like, I'm having self-reflection. I brought this to the conversation. It's not your horse, it's you. Is one of our mottos that we have, not in public, because now it's going to be public, because it's about us and us pausing. We need to pause. There was a part we didn't get to talk about with touch. We have touch needs. Horses don't necessarily have touch needs. Some horses don't even want to be touched, but we can help them want to be touched. So with that being said, we need to end. Cheat notes on your hand. Yes, awesome. So thank you all for being here. We will start back up where we left off with the 13 buttons, and you all have a great day. Take care. We love you. Till next time.